Good evening and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm so delighted to be here with you. I have my co host.
And good evening. It is great to be back, better than ever. And hey, I'm excited about this new month of May that we're in, and I'm excited about the shifting of seasons.
Yeah, right now it's time to break all limitations on your life. It doesn't matter what the situations and circumstances are around you. Don't care what it looks like, feel like, and what it acts like sometimes, because sometimes things get crazy. It's time to loose all limitations off our lives. And the only way we can do that is stay focused on our purpose.
Absolutely. And I like the way that you said it. It's time to loose all limitations. So oftentimes that we really rehearse our limitations more than we should. And so that means that we reinforce those limitations. We keep telling ourselves what we can't do. We keep telling ourselves what is too much. We keep telling ourselves what has always been. But I do believe that we have come to a time, an intersection in our lives, that this is the time now is to loose all limitation. In other words, even the limitations that we put on ourselves based upon people's opinion. How many people are locked down? I mean, literally, they're not locked down because of the pandemic. They're locked down because of their thinking, the thinking that they've had because they valued the opinions of others more than they valued that very intestinal fortitude, that very unction inside of them that is saying, move forward, get out of your comfort zone. This isn't it. I have not arrived yet, and that I still have a place to go. And so I'm excited about the fact because we see it in every facet of life. It is time to break the limitation, and we have to do so without asking permission.
Indeed. I tell you, I don't understand why people focus on their limitations more than their possibilities, but I can tell you this: once they get rid of all negative voices in their ears, once they get rid of all distractions, then they're able to move on once they embrace a larger vision of themselves. So I am so excited about all that God wants to do in the lives of his people.
You're exactly right. And I think when you talk about embrace a larger vision of yourself, it requires us actually meaning that we have to sever some things. Notice I didn't say cut. There are certain things in our lives we have to sever. I mean, we have to rip it asunder because the fact if we do not, it will grow back. It will reattach itself to us. And that means that the reason why we embrace such a small vision of ourselves because we have become comfortable with where we are. And we become comfortable and dependent upon the people that we've been around to endorse us, to affirm us, to make us feel good. And don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, it's a basic human instinct to want to be liked, to want to be approved, to want to be accepted. But if you're ever going to move anywhere, you got to kick all that off because you're not going to always be liked. You're not going to always be approved. You're not going to always be accepted. People are going to lie on you whether you did it or not. They're going to tell a lie on you whether you participated or not. So why waste your time imprisoning yourself inside of the minds or inside of the labels that people put upon you? And so
Mhm.
this is the thing that I think is important. We have to come in agreement with a greater vision for our lives, a greater vision. And for those that believe as we believe, we often quote the scripture now unto him who's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask and think. But there are other parts that according to the power that works within us.
Mhm.
And so who's actually minimizing it? Who's actually restricting that lens from becoming larger? It's us and those things that we rehearse. It's those things that we continue to allow to play itself over and over in our mind. That negative tape recorder about what you did and what you didn't do, and last time you failed, and you ain't never been able to do this. Ain't nobody in your family ever got past. No, you got to make up in your mind that I've been put here for such a time as this. I am the deal breaker. I am the curse buster. I am the poverty breaker. And you've got to make that up in your mind because it takes the same energy,
Mhm.
the same effort to rehearse something new than it does to rehearse your past.
Exactly. And that's the thing. A lot of times keep rehearsing the negativity that we've experienced in our lives. And, the next couple of weeks, we'll be talking about mental illness and
Right.
the effects it has on so many individuals, young, old. It doesn't matter because it does not have an age limitation or requirement. It happens and affects individuals at different stages of their lives. I was saying to, I forgot who I was talking to, but I was saying, a lot of people don't go get professional help because they will be labeled crazy. You're not crazy when you seek mental health, because of the fact that it just means that you're limited in your resources of thinking how to function and how to process to move forward, to cause that shift dynamic in your head to believe that whatever you're facing today, it won't and doesn't have to be what you face tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. We need help sometimes because we're not able to cause that shift ourselves. Just like when we're talking about salvation, believing in the Lord Jesus Christ. Well,
Mhm.
some people have different religions, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, if you don't believe in a power greater than yourself, what's the point?
Absolutely. And I think you hit a very important point too, because once again, people run away from things because of their fear of being labeled, as you said. And I heard, I think, let's say one time before, labels are not made for people, labels are made for jars.
Hmm.
That can of preservative has a label on it. Labels are not
Hmm.
made for people. And what happens is this: people learn to stigmatize. In other words, they stigmatize the fact that you need help. Stigmatization, stereotype you, make you feel ostracized, make you feel like there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. But we have a thing that we often say in the field: rather than label people and ask the question, what's wrong with you? Ask the question, what happened to you?
Hmm.
What happened to you? Now, it's not what's wrong. What happened to you? What is that event? What is that traumatic event? What was that event? What was that episode that may have occurred in a person's life that may have caused them to be out of sync or out of balance? And we need to ask the right questions, because if we don't ask the right questions, what happens? We become part of the perpetuation of the stereotype, the perpetuation of the stigma, the perpetuation, which oftentimes causes people to move even further away from confidence and oftentimes push them into a deeper depression, because of the fact people that they value or people that they would like to admire them or to approve them, all of a sudden is looking at them strangely. And that's where our power come in at. Our power come in at is the fact of being wise enough to recognize that the person who may be going through, say, mental illness or mental challenges, or that person who's about to snap, crackle, and pop, the fact that they reaching out for help, that shows you that doesn't show weakness, that shows wisdom. That shows a person that said, look, I know something is wrong here. I know that this is not my norm. I know that I need some help, some reinforcement, versus the individual who wants to put on the facade, the persona, and they know they're about to snap, crackle, and pop.
Hmm.
But yet, it's still for the sake of not being stigmatized or labeled, they avoid, they don't get help, they don't seek help, because somehow or another it is seen as if there's a deficiency.
Right.
There's a deficiency in you, as if you could have chosen that deficiency. That's not a matter of choosing deficiency. We all go through things and we handle them differently. But so often, we often hear that an ounce of prevention, that it's worth a pound of cure. Oftentimes, when we can detect things early, we can recognize that we're going through things early and we got the right resources. It makes a big difference. Think about it. How do you and I feel when someone recognizes it and they just can tell that we're not ourselves?
Hmm. Hmm.
With depressed, or you're going through it, and they don't come and jump on the bandwagon. What's wrong with you? You need to get out of that. No, they recognize that there's something that you have been confronted with that is taking you out for your normal grill, and
Real,
you.
yes.
You definitely can appreciate when people pull you back and people are there with you, and people don't find themselves trying to put a label on you. All of these things when we apply them, will help us break our limitations. Break our
Absolutely.
limitations of our past thinking. Break your limitations. So what? You failed. You failed. You failed. Guess what? But I promise you, keep going and you'll win. You'll win. You'll win. Because you don't get to winning unless you go by the avenue of failure. I don't know we can get there. We have to go through failure in order to recognize winning. And that is what breaks a limitation off. Before I ever succeeded in anything, I was limited in thinking I could not do it. But when I did succeed in something, it helped lift the limits off my mind because now I know that I can. Before, I did not know, I wasn't assured. And that's what we have to understand. In this day and time, if you come through this pandemic, if you come through all that's been going on, if you are here to tell the story and testify the fact that I'm on the other side, I made it over, you don't have an excuse to rehearse your limitation. The fact that you come out of it ought to be enough to say to you, oh yes, if I come through this, there's so much more I can do. You often talk about people have birthed things in this pandemic. Ideas, entrepreneurship. People have decided to go back to school. Folks have decided to get in
Exactly.
all new businesses. People have decided that I'm going to challenge my limitations. I'm not going to embrace my limitation. I'm not going to feed my limitation because whatever I nurture, that's what grows. So if I keep focusing on what I don't do, what I've failed at, what I'm not good at, guess what? I'll perfect at not doing good at it, and I'll perfect all those things. So it's changing the mindset, changing your language, changing where we're going. And we have to do that and have to be intentional about it. Intentional about it.
Exactly. And it says a lot about individuals standing up for what they want because it's so easy to throw in a towel and say, I'm not going to do this because, and I'm not going to go this way because I can't. And, when you focus on the fact that I can't, instead of focusing on why you need to cause that shift, and the why is that there's so much greatness in you. The why is that somebody's waiting for the manifestation of who you are to rise up, to impact their lives. The why is that some people can't shift in their own thinking, in their own perspective until you shift. So they're waiting on you to manifest your true self so that they can be manifested. You know that saying that says iron sharpen iron? Well, that's what that means. That means that whatever you're doing, it has to have another metal connected to it to grind on it, to shine and to define what it is. And a lot of times we're defined by the people we are around. We're defined by the works we do. We're defined by economical status. We're defined by the company we keep. We're defined by where we live. We're defined by what we drive. And a lot of times people use that as a negative thing, saying, because I'm not in this status, because I'm not in this circle, I don't deserve to be, and they fall into depression when the truth of the matter is that whoever you are, whatever you have, it is enough for you to get up and shift and walk in purpose. You are enough. When you have yourself and you have God, it's more than enough because of the fact that, He gives us gifts. There used to be this saying and plaques all over the place, God didn't create junk. He certainly didn't create junk.
Absolutely.
Everyone has value, from infants to elderly. You have value. You touch somebody's life.
That's such a powerful thing that you said because the search for significance is something that began from the moment we entered this earth. Identity, who we are. In the first part of our lives, that's being shaped by our environment, people around us, supposedly even folks are responsible for taking care of us. The messages that we hear, the input that we hear, all of those things begin to shape our sense of identity of who we are. The problem is the fact that if we have not learned to nurture that and to begin to really understand that life isn't lived all in one scoop. We are living life. We are becoming every day. Our former first lady wrote that
Yes, I was
best-selling
just
book,
thinking about that.
Becoming. And we have to understand that we're becoming. Never allow someone to cement you where you are right now.
Mm,
I love saying, I am not who I am. I'm only who I've become
mhm.
so far. Stay tuned. You might get a different version of me tomorrow because of the fact I'm still becoming who I am. So you cannot join the pity party, or you cannot join the critic party of those that have made up in their mind that your last stop was your final stop. Your last mistake was your final mistake. Your last failure defined you. Absolutely not. Because here's the deal. There's a new person that's being developed every day. Listen, I am not who I was 15 years ago. Thank heaven. I'm not who I was 10 years ago, because each stage of my life, which includes challenges, failures, ups, downs, every one of those things have had a very critical role in developing who I am. The reality is this, though, is that I have to be mindful of the fact that I don't allow someone to put a period where God has only put a comma. In other words, yes,
Ooh,
I've hit a place here, but it's only a pause. This is not it. This isn't the end. It does not yet appear who we shall be, but we know that when he shall appear, we should be like
we
him.
shall
I'm
be
not
like
all that
him.
I am. I'm only who I've become so far. Look out. If you're mad with this version, you ain't going to be able to stand the next version, because, in fact, I'm learning from what I've come through, and I'm rising up above my adversity. I'm rising up above people's opinion. I'm rising up above people's likes or dislikes. Like me, thumbs down, thumbs up. It doesn't matter. What matters is what do you feel about yourself,
Yes,
because you are enough.
yes.
You're enough.
And that's what the enemy throws at individuals. They feel that, they're a failure because they haven't accomplished something at a certain age. They feel that they're
Right.
a failure because, you know, they see other people excelling and they're not. But there is a pace, there is an evolving that takes place so that you can be the greater version of yourselves.
Exactly.
You see people that, have gone to the top and then they crash and burn, and then they rise up again and they crash and burn. Then they rise like a phoenix, and then they crash and burn, and then suddenly they rise
Yeah.
and they don't crash anymore,
Yeah.
because there were lessons that were supposed to be learned in the process that they went around instead of going through them to make them the greater version of themselves.
Oh, you said so much there. Because sometimes, and here's the thing we have to understand: there are a few words that we have to be able to define and delineate. Sometimes we can become anxious, because there are three different groups of people. Those that become anxious for success,
Yeah.
anxious. I gotta have it. I gotta have it now. And so what it is, they capture a vision of what success looked like at the moment.
Hmm.
The optics, the glitz, the glamour. But what they miss is the process.
The work.
Yeah, the process. How do
Yeah.
I get there? So guess what? I go and buy the clothes. I go and get in debt doing all that to look like I've gotten there, but I haven't gotten there because I have no substance to sustain me. I have nothing that made me. And so guess what? We say I fake it till I make it. No, what you're doing, you're faking and hoping that somebody think that you are what you think you are and what you know that you're not. The reality is that we have to stop long enough to say, look, I'm going to go through the process. I'm going to recognize what's happening. I'm going to study the attitudes and the habits of those that are successful. I'm not willing to sacrifice over and over again really what my destiny, my purpose is, because I think I'm racing against my own clock. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather have a steak at 9 than a hot dog at 6.
Mhm.
I'm willing
You-
to wait for the steak at 9 than to rush just to get the hot dog just to say I got some meat. No. I'm gonna wait. That means that guess what? It takes the steak a little bit longer to cook. It takes it a little bit longer to process. But inside of that, think about when boy, I'm getting hungry already. You think about when you begin to cook and you begin to let something marinate and you begin to let all those things come together, you get the fullness of it. But when we rush, when we're more concerned with the optics than what we are with the real thing, it always leaves us wanting all over again. I want to learn, even from my mistakes. I need to learn from them. Even from your failures, learn from them. Even from your shortcomings, learn from them. Don't worry about people. Oh, boy, they failed. Listen, there's not a person who ever succeeded that did not fail. Not one. Everyone has failed at something. And whether we're failing privately or publicly, there's still failure going on.
It's still failure. Except for publicly, it hurts more because everyone's exposed because you put yourself out there to be something you're not. So, one of the reasons that people struggle with depression is because of the appearance
Yeah.
of it all. They
Yeah.
want to appear like everything is well. They want to appear like they are financially stable. They want to appear that they have this big, fat, fabulous house. They want to appear that they have a big bank account. When the reality is that so many people that are walking around that you think you want to be like,
Yeah.
they're miserable because they have things and things have not filled that hole they have.
Wow. You hit it. Let me just say
They
this.
have things,
Yeah.
but it's not filled that hole they have because they spent so much time focusing on the I instead of the we, the bigger picture of the exposure that you're supposed to give to individuals' lives so that it can be reciprocated back. When you're closed fist, me, myself, and I, you can't reap the full benefits of all the master has for you.
You know, you hit it on the head. This past weekend, the music world, country music in particular, lost a great icon in Naomi Judd. I remember not only growing up, but when I say growing up in my early adult years, I mean, the Judds, I mean, you name it.
Yeah, right, the Judds.
I mean, they were just something, even at a television show, incredible women, incredible story, incredible inside, incredible artists. But over the last few years, Naomi suffered from some mental health issues.
Hmm.
And she talked very openly about it. Clinical depression, going through these moments, and people understanding that this is real.
Mhm.
This is real. And you just described a moment, because so often people have a vision that if I ever got this much money, if I ever lived there, if I ever could get this, man, my life would be set, until it's not.
Right.
Because guess what? Your description was the most perfect description I've heard. There are certain things in life
That
that
came
will not
straight
bring
from
you
God
fulfillment,
because we do this show right off the cuff. We don't
right?
like write down notes and stuff.
Right,
So
exactly,
don't
exactly.
ask me what I just said because I don't know.
Okay. There shall be no repeat, right? The fulfillment. What is it that make me fulfill? What does fulfillment really looks like? What does contentment look like? Because what we need to understand is that whatever that will bring you contentment will also be part of what bring you fulfillment. If you find yourself still depressed after having got all the stuff you thought that would make you happy.
Mm.
I spoke to someone earlier today, and they spoke to me, and I go way back with them. They said to me these words. They said, remember years ago, I used to tell you that by the time I retire, I wanted to retire as a millionaire? I said, yes, because I hadn't spoken to this person in a long time. They said, well, I retired, and I retired a millionaire. But I'm so lonely. I'm so depressed. I've gone through so much stuff. I feel like sometimes just walking off the edge. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I said, permission to speak freely. I said, what it is this: you have not found what really brings you fulfillment. Then they said, I just want to be loved.
Mm.
I just want to be loved. I want to be watched as valued by someone. I want to feel as if I make a difference, that I have some sense of worth in others' eyes. Hmm. Sometimes it's hard, not necessarily that I talk about this person, but sometimes it's hard. People will do all that they can to get at the top. Watch what I'm saying. We're not discouraging ambition. We're not discouraging aspiration. As a matter of fact, we're promoting it. But here's the trap. The trap is when you think that you can get there without doing the homework. When you think you can get there without oftentimes considering others around you. When you think that you can get there without paying your dues. What do you mean your dues? You have a dues to society somewhere along the line. I learned that what I am blessed is not about just me, but I was meant to bless others. I just was meant to do so. I was meant to do so. I know no other action. My natural response from receiving is to give. The natural response. However, when we are on a pursuit of just getting, and it doesn't cause us to ever give out. And when I say give out, not just give out and talent and treasure, but time.
Right, right.
Give out in consideration.
Right. A lot of people fall into depression too because they don't have the resources to sow into things that they desire and that people expect them to sow into because the perception is you got it, you can do it. And, that causes a weight of depression too, living this life on stage, I call it. I
Yeah.
did it for many years, married
Right.
with my first husband, who, I was in a domestic violence situation for almost 17 of the 19 years. And um, I lived on stage. I was performing every day. On the outside, everything looked peachy, but inside I was in living hell. I would stay in the bed depressed. I was even on Xanax
Yeah.
because I had gotten so much anxiety from the abuse and the multiple traumas that I had been taken through till it caused so much depression that I would have panic attacks. I was afraid to open the door. And when I did go outside and I had to drop the kids off to school, I was sweating and trembling. And by the time I got to where I was going, I was drenched, even though I was in an air conditioned car. So, was I crazy? No, I was going through a mental transition at the
Mhm.
time.
Exactly.
And but I wasn't crazy.
Mhm.
I was going through an emotional disconnect, and I had a hard time pulling myself together because of what I was going through. So, one of the things I would say to individuals when you're going through different situations and circumstances in your life, because circumstances can cause you to be at a place where I was, that you ask for help, and not because you're weak, but because you want to stay strong. You
Mhm.
ask for help and keep asking for help until the right help comes. Don't pour or share your personal information with people that can't help you. There's a
Absolutely.
lot of people that you connect to and you tell your business to, and they can't help you because they're not equipped to help you. All they can do is listen, but have no conscious state of mind of how to pour into your life. I'm a life coach, and I tell you, when I'm talking to him, it's just like when we're talking here on the show. I don't
Right.
have no script, but I am blessed to be able to tap into that emotion and listen to what that person is not saying, to be able to communicate them, to help them cause that shift in their lives so that they can get the help that they need if I can't help them. And I will tell you, I can't help you. You need to seek more professional help, because just because you go to a psychiatrist doesn't mean that they're it. Sometimes you don't click with that person because
Exactly.
all it is, they're giving you their opinion, and what they're just like you go to a doctor, they'll give you their diagnosis, but they can only give you the medication based on what you're telling them, because they're not going to look at you and say, okay, I need to prescribe this type tranquilizer for you. And they said they're going by what you say.
Absolutely.
So we need to be clear on our communication. We need to be clear on what it is we're seeking for, what we're asking for, and learn to be transparent for those who actually have the or working from a place of authority to help you. Get professional help.
You're exactly right. And when you say that, that's a word to the wise, because when we seek for help, and understand things happen to us at different times of our life. That's one reason it's not good to always compare yourself to others. Well, I should be further along. We're the same age. We went to the same school, but doesn't mean that you had the same experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that those experiences didn't come in the same order. Doesn't mean that you were at the same place. Your starting point might have not been at the same place. And I need you to understand that your ending point won't be neither. See, the Proverbs ties it up and it says it like this, and it's also used in the world's colloquialisms. It says, the race is not given to the swift, or the battle to the strong, but he that endureth to the end. What we deal with is the fact that we're all in our own races. And that's what we have to focus on, our own races. We have to focus on our own races inside of life. It's one thing for me to look at you and admire where you are, and me look at you and desire to be where you are.
Mm-hmm.
If my desire to be where you are is so overwhelming, it produces a sense of envy. I want to be there. I should be there. What's wrong? And I begin to go into that way, and I begin to magnify every mistake I make. I magnify every slow production. I magnify everything that doesn't line up to what I think it is. And that's what happens. Our limitations. The only reason that we're limited, because we have rehearsed that we're limited. We have rehearsed
that.
This is it. This is it. Now, what we're told, and we talk about the fact of the circus. It is said that when the circus would train elephants, they trained them from babies, the baby elephant. And how did they train them? They trained them by first putting a shackle on their leg. And they would put the stake in the ground that the shackle was tied to. The baby elephant could go but so far. And in the beginning, that's what the baby elephant did. It went to as far as it could go, and it would pull it back. And it did that. And it did that for its first few years developing. And then they took the shackle off of the baby elephant. And the baby elephant still, with no shackle on his leg, no physical chains on his leg, would still only go to as far as it did before, because now the shackle was no longer on his leg, the shackle was on his brain. So we got to take the shackle off of our brain in order to break the limitations of where we've been. I will not continue to rehearse. I've only gone that far. I've only gone that far. Well, we know this much. We will never be able to explore the depths of the ocean with our feet still on the shore.
Mm.
We've got to leave the shore if we're going to get beyond limitation. We've got to leave. Look, there are people who have never left outside of their own county. You got to get out sometime. You got to get out beyond your city border. You better know more than your area code. That means the fact you got to break the limitation, because outside of that place is opportunity. Outside of those limitations is destiny. Outside of those limitations, we find the success that not just that what we want, but the success that has been really ordained for us. Mm-hmm. It's been waiting for us to show up. We missed many appointments.
Yeah, everyone has a destiny.
Yes, absolutely. And it's time to understand that now destiny is calling us. It's calling us to our purpose. It's calling us to the greater. It's calling us for the very thing that frustrates you should be the thing that motivates you to move further. Mm-hmm. The very thing that frustrates you ought to cause you to move further. If you're frustrated
ought to cause you.
Exactly, it ought to do so. If you're frustrated for being broke, then don't stay there be broke. Look, you need to develop a sense that I'm allergic to being broke. I'm allergic to that. And so I need to push past my limitations, past those things, refuse to wear the label, rise up, do the things that are necessary. Notice those things around us. Notice those symptoms. Notice when I'm not myself. That's called being wise. Many people will miss out because they think being spiritual is necessarily being wise, or they think their silence is being wise. It's not being wise.
Exactly.
That's you just being in your own shame because you can't explain it. You don't want to say anything. Do you want to just say, well, the Lord knows? No, the Lord knows, and he wants you to know. he wants you to know too. He wants you to know. And so oftentimes that which we can't explain, we just be quiet about. That's not the right response to it. When I don't know, then I need to seek help because there's safety in a multitude of counsel. That's wisdom in a multitude of counsel. That's why we have to expand our territory.
Indeed.
Expand where we are. Because I'm telling you, destiny is, your success and your destiny exists right outside your comfort zone. Right outside your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
That's where it resides.
And you are, and especially if you're already uncomfortable, why not be uncomfortable for the greater?
For the greater. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's going to be uncomfortable. Be wiggling and stuff. It's going to be uncomfortable, but be uncomfortable for the greater.
Absolutely. And the great thing about it is this: success is always a moving, evolving process. Because even inside, consider this: when we go to swim and we go out to a pool or whatever, when we first jump in that water, it is so cold. Woo! But what happened? We adjust. In a matter of moments, we adjust and we're out there. Sometimes our successes, we get adjusted to them and we become comfortable. Then the thirst to go further has been diminished. But until you allow your hunger, your thirst, your sense of expectation, until you unharness that, you'll get yourself comfortable all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get comfortable, you know what happened? I'll tell you what happened for me when I get too comfortable. You know what happened? I started doing this. Why? Because now all activity has slowed down. And life began to lullaby me to sleep because I've gotten comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm in tune,
it's just like that. People get comfortable in their jobs too that they don't like, but because it's a steady paycheck, because they know the benefits and stuff like that they have, they're going to stay in that situation and be miserable until they get to retirement. And a lot of times people work till they get to retirement, and guess what? They don't even get a chance to enjoy their retirement money because they allowed life to pass them by and they were miserable in the process. And when they got to the end, it was for naught because they had wasted so much time being dormant, just settling.
And because of the fact we often will do this, we will defer. We'll defer. We'll keep deferring. We'll keep deferring.
Now, the word of God has a thing, a word for that. It said, "My spirit will not always strive with man."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there is a deadline on purpose because of the fact that you have a certain amount of time to accomplish. And sometimes you can have 50 years to accomplish something and you don't. After that 50 years, then it's time for you to expire. And God, no man knows the hour or the day, but then God has his way of doing things and saying it is done, it is finished. But what we want to do is make sure that in the process of living this life we live, that we prepare the way for legacy. And that's one of the things that individuals don't think about. They're just so overwhelmed with themselves, me, myself, and I, that they don't see the bigger picture. involved. It's never ever about us. It's about what God
Yeah.
wants to do through us. Whose life are we going to impact? Even if it's that one person, the Lord allow you to live to 100 if you
Mhm.
reach that one person He wanted you to connect with.
Absolutely.
Yes, He will. He will allow you to live full of days, even if it was one person you were meant to bless.
Absolutely. Well,
But
those are
people are sitting back thinking their life is unfulfilled because they're feeling they need to do this great big massive thing when all they need to do is get up.
absolutely.
Activate your faith and be motivated enough to get up and do
Yeah.
something besides focus on you and what you feel that you don't have. When the truth of the matter is, if you're still living, breathing, talking thing, you have everything you need to accomplish whatever you want to do the next season of your life because you're still here.
Exactly. Are we committed to the cause? Are we
Mm.
committed to the purpose? Are we committed to it?
Break the limitations.
Exactly. We have to break the limitation, and that's really the word. That's the word. That if there's ever a now word, we have to break the limitations. Fear will hold us in. Embarrassment, which is a form of fear, will cause us to stay stuck where we are. But also apathy. Spirit of apathy upon us. We have no drive. We have no ambition. We have no desire. It is a limitation to you. And
Mhm.
that limitation doesn't only impact you, but it impacts everyone that you was called to serve. Everyone that you were called to touch their lives. Every one of them. And so when we begin to adopt that and make that a part of our mantra and a part of how we live our lives, we're going to see life look differently. We're going to be more cognizant of ourselves, but of others. We're going to recognize things that are happening. We are going to know the value of being our brothers and our sisters' keeper. And we're going to recognize also the impact that we make because we're created to make a difference and in a purpose. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you don't have a purpose. Everyone is born created with purpose, for a purpose, and on purpose.
Mhm.
But you must be a pursuer of purpose. If you
Indeed.
pursue purpose, you'll find it. And you will become all that you're meant to become. So I'm going to say to somebody, perhaps you've been stuck. Perhaps you have been in the cocoon stage of your life for a long time. Perhaps you've been there. For others, perhaps you said, look like I've been stuck at this caterpillar stage for a long time. Life isn't moving. Well, all life needs is your permission and your action. Because that butterfly is there. It's inside of you dying to get out. The only way it can get out is that you got to let it live. You only can let it live when you take the limitations off. Take the limitation off. Take the chain off your brain, John Henry, and let's begin to move forward and break all the limitations.
Indeed. Well, this has been another Hot Topics from the Soul. And I thank you, Dr. J, for being my co host. And those of
Absolutely.
you that follow us, continue to follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to Hot Topics from the Soul YouTube channel. And of course, you can always connect with Dr. J, see all that he's doing at
Yes.
www.jrthicklin.com. He's doing some magnificent things in the community, and reach out for him. He's a new author. Tell him about the book you're a part of.
Yes. Our book release is called, it was called Find Purpose, Man Up. Actually, the first part of the title is Chosen. So, first of all, it speaks to your whole destiny. Chosen, find purpose, man up. And it's a collaboration of us sharing our stories of the things that have proved us and pruned us in order that we may come forth victorious, understanding how to process the experiences that life brought, to process the events that life brought, to process the disappointments, and yet it's still the eurekas of life when we felt that we're on top. All of it was part of us finding purpose. So let's man up, let's stand up, let's speak up, because it's time to find purpose.
Indeed. And please visit my website. I'm going to invite you to visit my website. And
Yes,
I invite you to purchase my book, Unlimited Possibilities Walking in Purpose. You know, you listen to us every week, and we're always trying to pour into you positivity to keep you moving in the right direction, because life is short and unpredictable. So why not live it on time and on purpose? So visit my website, from the soulofawoman.com, and purchase the book Unlimited Possibilities Walking in Purpose. It is a nice minimum book, so you won't be taking you weeks and years to read, because I promise you, when you pick it up, you won't be able to put it down. You'll read it all in one
absolutely.
setting. So support the Soul of a Woman Foundation, which is my foundation for domestic violence and children in single parent homes. So when you support me by purchasing me or Dr. J's products, by going to our websites, you know, it supports the work we do and allow us to do what we do each week here, pouring into you. So we appreciate you. We're here because you're here, and we hope that you have a delightful day, a delightful evening, a delightful rest. Until next week, we see you on Hot Topics from the Soul. God bless.
Bless.